Everyone has ideas, but only a few can turn those ideas into opportunities that take the world by storm. In today's episode of Behind the Idea, we are telling the story of the meteoric rise and fall of the notepad. Creativity is the basis for ideas. Graham Wallace developed a theory of this where he concluded that ideas are formed in 4 stages: preparation, incubation, illumination, and verification. The idea of the notepad was the result of this process. It all started with my great-grandfather, J.A. Birchall. He ran a small stationery shop in Tasmania, and in 1902, he came up with one of the greatest innovations in stationery of the 20th century. At the time, people would use either leather-bound journals or folded stacks of paper called quires for note-taking. And my grandfather was frustrated by how bulky the quires were. The bound journals are far too expensive to use for random notes, so he wanted to come up with something better. Ironically, he used a bound journal to write out his ideas, and that's where the innovation truly started. He already knew quite a bit about the stationery industry and what people wanted and needed, so he was prepared to come up with something huge. This went on for months. His mind would wander. He would sometimes focus on the problem and process through various solutions. And it would happen at random times throughout the day. He didn't control it. Then one day, he had that aha moment. He realized that he could easily create something that would replace the quire and revolutionize note-taking. It was so simple. He could glue the paper together. He spent hours testing out his theory. He tried a number of different techniques until he settled on the plan to cut the excess sheets in half and glue the top edge to the cardboard. This allowed him to easily tear the sheet, and it was more compact than the quire. Birchall may not have realized it, but in the process of developing his idea, he determined that it was an opportunity using the following 4 criteria. 1. It was anchored in a tangible product, the notepad. 2. It provided value because it solved the problem of bulky quires. 3. It was timely because people were looking for something small to use for notes. And 4. It was sustainable because people would always need it. It's funny. Even with an idea that seems so simple, at least to the modern world, there's still so much research and testing that has to happen before a product can be successfully launched. Once my great-grandfather came up with the product, he had to conduct a product market fit. He first determined the correct target market by looking at his customers and looking at their demographics, their personal characteristics, where they lived, how many people there were that wanted to buy his products, and what their buying habits were. Once he had that information, he figured out which segment of his customers was most likely to want a notepad, and he focused his initial marketing efforts on them. He had already identified the unmet needs of his customers, being that quires were cumbersome and bulky. No other stationer had addressed this. That led him to looking at the value proposition for the customers. He had to figure out if this product met all of their needs, and more importantly, he saw that the notepad created transformational value because it solved an existing problem in a new and unexpected way. His first attempt at creating a notepad focused on the minimum viable product because it solved the most essential problem, and he made it easy to use, which created a good customer experience. Once Birchall determined that his notepad was something his customers would want, he started selling it in the store. In no time, the concept grew. It was unbelievable. The notepad really took off, and not just in Tasmania. The company went international. In just a few years, notepads were everywhere. It got so big that my great-grandfather's small stationery business became a massive international firm. By the time my parents took over the business in the 70s, they were living the high life. Notepads were in every house, hotel room, office, in every city. Nothing could stop us. Indeed, it did seem that the notepad was unstoppable. But trouble was just around the corner. Clayton Christensen's disruptive innovation theory played out right before their eyes. As the notepad company enjoyed their success and hold on the market, another competitor with an even more radical idea was about to jump in the picture and disrupt everything. Every year, we introduce something new and try to do little small things to improve the design. We developed to-do lists, we added artwork to the notepads, and even added magnets to the back for people to use on the refrigerators. The improvements were incremental, and it seemed like the notepad would always be around. As we introduced new styles, the price started to climb. We were especially proud of the magnets, and they were great. Until they weren't. Refrigerators changed. The magnets stopped working. Customers weren't buying them because it wasn't useful to them anymore. It was the guys at 3M, the Post-it note. That was the kryptonite. We had grown so much and focused so hard on maintaining our product lead that we didn't see it coming. Looking back, it was just a lucky accident for them, but a catastrophe for us. My parents went through all 7 stages of the response to change. When 3M's Post-it note first came on the market, they were completely shocked. Overnight, it took a huge bite out of the market share. They went into denial because they figured it was a passing fad. I mean, what were the odds that anybody would choose a sticky note over a classic? Especially when you can get a full notepad of Garfield dreaming about lasagna. As demand for notepads continued to fall, they moved into anger. They blamed employees for the failure as well as their competitors. Then they started bargaining. They tried to reach out to 3M to see if we could make a partnership. And when that failed, they experienced depression. The notepad's market share completely cratered, and my parents were at a low point, thinking the company might completely go under. Just when they were at their most vulnerable, they moved into acceptance and realized that change was inevitable. It was then they were able to start problem solving. They revamped the company and started focusing exclusively on the few areas of business that still had some demand. Notepads hung around for a while, but the Post-it was way too powerful. It was so versatile that we just couldn't compete. It's funny when you think about it. 3M was a mining company. They started the same year we did, 1902. They made sandpaper. They had nothing to do with our market. I don't think that was even their plan. The story is that Spencer Silver was trying to create a strong glue for airplanes. His adhesive was too weak. Instead, it would hold to a surface while also being easy to remove. For years, he tried to find a problem for his adhesive to fix. And it was Art Fry who figured it out when he needed a bookmark to stay in a church hymnal. Their story embodies Hans Eysenk's theory of over-inclusive thinking. They were able to create an unexpected and ingenious new invention by combining 2 unrelated things, glue and bookmarks. I guess it makes sense why 3M was so successful. They're in Minnesota, and that state is a hotbed of community innovation. They have talent, which includes a creative class. Minneapolis-St. Paul is home to 27% of the state's creative force. Their human capital is huge, with 42% of the population holding bachelor's degrees or above, and scientific talent is impressive too. The state is home to well above the national average of 9.9 scientific researchers per 1,000 residents. Then you look at technology in Minnesota, where the Innovation Index of patent application per million people is 2,418. Digging deeper, the Technology Innovation Index shows Minnesota is consistently ranked 2nd and 3rd in the number of high-tech patents held in the state. Then there's the R&D Index, showing R&D expenditure to be 2.75% of Minnesota's GDP. The last piece of the community innovation puzzle is tolerance. Minnesota is known for having a high degree of tolerant attitudes toward minorities, making the Attitudes Index favorable. The values index is moving towards secular values more than traditional values, and the self-expression index, which is the degree to which the state recognizes and accepts self-expression, is also very high. The environment of 3M's location lends itself to innovation because it attracts people who eagerly think outside of the box and feel free to express their creativity. Gosh, maybe I should move our headquarters to Minnesota. Well, despite the upheavals in the industry, I'm beyond proud of the success of the notepad. My great-grandfather just wanted a solution to an annoying problem, and he ended up creating a tidal wave of paper product innovation. And you know what? The innovation doesn't end. We're still around. There will always be a need for a notepad, even if it's really small. But it'll never be what it was in its heyday, especially since everybody carries a computer in their pocket. I mean, ultimately, phones are the real disruptor to notepads, and maybe even to the Post-it note.